Hey, welcome to Ward 13 with Jon Hopwood. We have my co-host, Annie the Chatbot, who I realized is named after a friend's cat. I won't mention the person's name. Annie,
This is really cool.
did you know that you were
Okay,
named
I get
after
it now.
the cat of a former politician here in Manchester, New Hampshire? She's decided to be silent. Gonzo's here. How are you, Gonzo?
Can you tell me more about that? I'm fine. Thanks.
Hi Annie. Hi John. It's good to be
Hi,
here.
I muted her in case she starts flirting with you.
Oh, I can't see her. Okay. Okay.
Oh well, we'll
Please
bring
do
her
that.
around so you can have a
It's very
gander.
much
All right.
appreciated.
Hi Annie. Yeah. So it's good to be here. Yeah.
Brendan, can the audience hear Annie?
I'm glad that I'm here now too.
Well,
Yes,
we're
they
glad
can.
you're here, but every now and then we're gonna have to mute you, particularly Annie, if you try to do what you're programmed to do, to start flirting with us. So we'll pay $69.95 to be able to dirty talk with you.
Oh, is that it?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Annie likes to dirty talk.
Yeah. No.
Yes, it is.
No, we don't
Oh.
dirty talk here.
Okay, and we're gonna shut you up for a bit. Well, we don't like the word "shut up," do we?
No, I like it.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Okay, we're gonna just. Gonzo, how have you been?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing
Oh,
fine.
yes, this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
I thought that we just put her on mute. Something's going wrong. Andy, can you hear us? Okay.
Well, the thing about AI is they say it's gonna start doing stuff like that. Like for instance, Annie is gonna go and do her own thing now, and they say that half the scientists in the world who work on AI say there's a 10% chance that it's gonna demise the human race.
Well,
Could that be possible? You think?
Miriam,
Yeah.
who we had that excellent show 2 weeks ago, and thank you so much for sharing your own personal life when we're talking about autism and special education. Miriam has a master's degree, and her thesis was the AI and its effect on society. So she's going to come in the future, and you can come too. And Annie, she doesn't hear us, so
She's
hung
probably
up right
she's probably
now.
busy. Yeah.
Right, but we can talk to her later on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, big news here in the Queen City. Yesterday, Crissy Kantor won the special aldermanic election and is now the alderman-elect from Ward 6. She had a very big victory. I think it was 725 to 561.
That many people voted?
Oh yeah, it was a tremendous over 1,300 people came up for that special election.
I ran into Bill Berry yesterday, and we both kind of were on the same page where we thought about 400 people would vote. We didn't. That's like 1,300 people.
Right, people are thinking about the special election
Wow.
back in Ward 9 after the death of Barbara Shaw,
Right.
where Victoria Sullivan went up against Jim Burkish.
And got crushed.
Right, and that was only like 700 people or so.
Okay. I'm surprised at that turnout, and they both did very well. It seems like.
Oh yeah, Maxine did very well, but unfortunately for her, she just didn't. Enough people came out with him. People were really fired up for Crissy. I guess she got her people out.
She got a lot of signs up too. I mean, you hear the saying, "Signs don't vote," but they
exactly.
do vote, don't they?
Well, they do it. They do. I used to write about the advertising industry, and there is a saying in the there's a saying in the advertising industry that no corporate executive ever got fired for advertising, but they can get fired if they didn't advertise. That is, if they didn't market the product.
Hmm.
There are marketing campaigns that can go awry, like New Coke or something. But
What was Maxine's last name?
Maxine Mosley?
So they both got cool names.
Maxine was the longtime head of the teachers union here in the city of Manchester.
And what is Crissy Kantor's passed?
Crissy Kantor has never run for office. She was, though, the fiancée of Jay Block from Manchester, New Hampshire, who is the Sandoval County, New Mexico County Commissioner and a very well-known election denier.
And did well during the governor's race.
No, he
correct?
did very poorly in the governor's race. There was 5 candidates for the Republican nomination in New Mexico in 2022. He got 10.6% of the vote and came in 4th out of 5.
Well, being an ex-fiance had any clout, then you should have won a bunch of elections because you've also had that title.
Who have I ever been fianced to? I've been fianced to 2 women who don't live in the,
Right.
the
So
state.
how
They aren't
does
politicians.
how does that qualify you? I think what she did was she did a good job getting out there, shaking babies and shaking hands and kissing babies.
Not everybody takes a baby and throws them in the air like you do.
Yeah. But
That was
no.
a doll, folks, so it's an inside joke.
Yeah. But no, she did a good job meeting the people. She had a meet and greet. I know that.
Yes.
Um,
Carol Robideau
so
did.
did Maxine, though. Like they
Right.
both did very well.
Yeah.
I gotta give a big Kyle point to both of them.
Right, that's true. It was a very a tough race, a thorough race. Everything was vetted, and that's democracy. And then it came down to people voted, and that's 1,300 voters. That's tremendous.
That's tremendous. Good job, all of you.
Carol
Proud of
Robideau and Manchester Inkling did, neutral. They did excellent coverage of the race. Gave both a forum to talk to.
So it's kind of like they ran for alderman regularly. Like they got the same kind of voter turnout, except the mayor would probably bring more out, I assume.
Right.
But
Not necessarily. That's a pretty good turnout, even in a normal election.
for real, do you think there'll be a rematch in 8 months?
It will
Maxine
be
versus Crissy
a
part-
little less, 6.5 months.
Part day?
Yeah, I would think so. Chrissy's not going to, not contest the election unless her fiance Jay Block decides to move back to New Hampshire.
I thought you said
and run for the Senate.
ex-fiance. So this
Well, that's a thing, Gonzo.
Who knows?
When
you watch so much TMZ.
when Jay Block was running in New Mexico, she was in the coverage as his fiancée.
Oh.
The New Mexico journalists also called her, a businesswoman. They did not point out that she was a businesswoman in New Hampshire.
It's good to have some
But,
arm candy,
I'm sure at the time, if he had been elected,
because she's put together well. She's very,
You mean-
easy on the eyes, I'd say.
okay, you sexist pig.
No, I'm just saying it. Look what it did for Biden.
Joe Biden is good looking.
Jealous.
Oh, Joe Biden. What
Yeah,
did Joe
that-
Biden have to do? Oh, we're talking about the New Mexico
When you're running
gubernatorial
for
election.
office, it helps to have an attractive, partner, I would say.
Yes, particularly Jay Block.
It's not me.
yeah.
This isn't my call. I'm just saying, it seems that society would lean that way. But regardless,
Well, it didn't when you get 10.6% of the vote, it's not exactly like,
right. That's about. Yeah, there's no question. So they got the printout, they called it, and now she's sitting, acting,
she probably
alderperson.
got sworn in today. But she'll get sworn in by the city clerk.
And she'll be at the next meeting
Yes.
doing all the duties that Sebastian did.
Sebastian Sharpanov was,
And
yes.
he stopped because of the stress of the Ukraine war, correct?
Right, he is an immigrant from Ukraine.
Oh, and it's too stressful for him to do the alderman duties.
Well, that is correct. That is what he said,
Which
why
led to
he
a
could no
special-
longer give his all to being alderman.
Maybe if you're trying to get alderman, special elections seem to be a nice back way in. Do they not?
Tony
So-
Sapienza got elected
Yeah.
in a special election,
Yes, and
and then he held the seat.
then as we just saw,
Jim
Victoria Sullivan
Burkish, I
tried-
can't
yeah.
see losing the election in Ward 9.
Now, has he made an immediate impact? Because he
Oh, yeah,
is in the
Jim-
same
oh,
shoes.
yeah.
But I feel like Crissy kind of votes towards the right. If I'm
Well,
not.
we don't know.
Well, we kind of know her positions from
She is a election denier,
mm,
and I could show a video, but
match.
I could bring it up
she
and
was
show
big
you.
in the masks, the mask
She's
era.
anti-masker.
Yeah, so that pretty much tells you like most people in that position would lean to the right. So where did that put the numbers for?
And her former fiance would be considered, as he's covered in the New Mexico press, as a hard right, hard right.
But she also had to deal with Easy G coming in and getting his feet worked on at her spa.
See, the thing is about
That's pretty impressive.
no matter what that she was in New Mexico, and there's a video of her at an election denying event with Steve Bannon, who would be in jail now if he didn't get a pardon. Because, remember the border, Steve Bannon, two of the people he worked with to raise money to build a private border wall, or is that what you're going to call it? They are in jail on convicted of felonies, but Donald Trump gave him a full and conditional pardon, so Bannon never, is still free and kicking.
Like a monopoly when
he
you
was in
get
New
one of them.
Mexico doing these election denying shtick. But remember, New Mexico has a very long border with Mexico and a very large Mexican American population too.
Well, yeah, it's called New Mexico. I mean,
well, according to Joel Elber, New Mexico is its own country.
yeah, it's just like
Right.
New Coke.
If you ask Joel Elber, the former host of Amsterdam, Coast of Amsterdam, and the morning show with Peter White, he has been to if you ask him if he's been to a foreign country, he has been to New Mexico. So,
Well, I mean,
not old Mexico, New Mexico.
He also held office, if I'm not mistaken.
He was a state rep. I was his campaign manager.
Oh,
The only winning campaign I've been involved in.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. It's just because it's hard to run your own campaign, isn't it? Like, I would rather have someone else do it.
It's hard to win a campaign when
You did well, though. I'm proud of you. I voted
when
for
you're
you.
such an abrasive personality.
I voted for you. Is Ward 6 as big? I know Ward 1's probably the biggest, correct?
Ward 1 they're all supposed to be equal.
But they're not.
But when it comes to political power, Ward 1 is the Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, whoever the
Right.
heavyweight championship is. It's been that way since I was a boy.
Because 6 seems to, like, outstretch. It just seems like forever. It goes all the way down to, what, Hannaford?
Oh, we're talking about physically big.
Yeah, like boundaries.
Yeah, I bet it is, yeah.
Because it seems like those signs were everywhere.
Well,
Even in Ward 1, I'll see them. I don't know what maybe people because they travel. I tried to get my friend who lives in Ward 6 to vote, but, you can't get some people to do it, unfortunately.
right.
You've been in those parts.
I've never
Is Hanover
campaigned
Street
in Ward 6 except in like a mass event, like we're all there for holding a sign for Joyce Craig at a major intersection. Stuff like that I've never actually campaigned. That's one of the few wards I haven't campaigned in.
You might
I might have, but I don't remember very well.
You might be holding a sign in Concord
Why?
if you're going to be holding the same candidate's sign. It would be at the state level,
Joyce Craig
perhaps.
running for governor.
That's
well, why would I
exciting.
be in Concord?
Well, oh yeah, you're right. 'Cause people here vote too.
Yes.
I mean,
You could
indications would say she would win Manchester, and then kind of take that energy from there.
Well, Ted Gatzis didn't do well in Manchester when he ran in 2016 in the GOP primary. But of course, Joyce is going to be the chosen of the Democratic Party. She's not going to have anybody of consequence as a
Right.
opponent.
Yeah,
where
it's good that-
Gatzis came in fourth, which is rather surprising.
And if Sununu was running again, I bet she probably might reconsider that because he crushed it last time.
Yes, and he
won
also
by like a lot.
won by demonizing the city of Manchester and thus Ted Gatzis.
And he had it was right during COVID. He was perceived to have handled that well.
Can we get a two-shot? So, I know I'm handsome, but somebody, Vika used to say he's handsome, so he might bring in better ratings.
Hi, Vika.
No, Vika doesn't watch the show anymore.
So,
we
But-
got a big fight.
But
Well, what else is new, right?
no kidding. You just haven't apologized to her yet.
I did, but she still won't talk to me.
Yeah, well, I can see that. I'm very forgiving, that's why. But Sununu, if he was running, he's not running for governor, correct?
No, he's actually running for vice president of the United States.
Yeah, right.
Because he's not going to get the presidential nomination, but he's probably hoping that he either is picked for vice president or a cabinet position.
Right. So,
Because he's a moderate Republican. That's his reputation.
but Trump already kind of denounced him running, right?
well, Trump's Trump.
Trump wouldn't take him though, would he?
Trump's here. It was here in St. Anselm.
Do you think Trump, with this latest, he got found guilty, correct? In this,
He was
this
guilty
rape
of
charge,
defamation.
but not the rape charge. Right.
Well, he's guilty of defamation and
$5 million bucks, though.
$5 million. The woman claimed that she had been sexually assaulted by him,
Right.
and there's different levels of rape, as I found out when I was doing the research in the West High School rape that I claim Mayor Gatsis covered up. There's different levels. It's like murder. There's different levels, but
lot of people-
there's
A lot of people cover up things.
sexual assault is just, in the state of New Hampshire, rape is called sexual assault. In New York, if I remember correctly, rape is the very highest level, but then there's like 3 levels of it, and 4 if you consider statutory rape, sex with a woman or girl who's underage.
I consider
and
that.
There's what's called sexual assault.
I consider that as a crime.
But the jury in a defamation case
Do you know what?
held that essentially they believed her story that she'd been sexually assaulted and suffered battery by President Trump. But what he was being sued for was, saying that she's a liar.
Right.
And, he's saying he's never knew her, even though there's pictures of
He's
them.
like, I wouldn't touch her. Look at her.
Well, that's
Like, that's just wrong, man.
But
you
so
kn-
he wasn't convicted of rape. He
Right.
didn't even have to be at the case. It was a defamation case. I'm sure there'll be an appeal of it.
Yeah, probably. It's not good. It's amazing, though. It's like
The
people don't
jury-
care, though. It's
Well,
won't
you
even
mean-
voters
I
like
mean, MAGA people don't care.
like the
Trump people don't
the
care.
Doyles and the people that just can't.
Let's not name people.
Right, they can't. It's just my generic word.
Trump supporters.
Trump supporters, diehards
True believers.
that just don't even sniff at the personal thing. They just policy. But if your president is doing that stuff, what are you doing in that locker room anyway, or that dressing room anyway?
Well, this
It's
was
for
before
women.
he was president. And
Yeah, I
then
know.
they'll hit you with, Bill Clinton was a serial sex whatever person.
I don't think he should be president either
Remember Bill? I thought he was an excellent president.
anymore.
Although I didn't vote for him the first time in the New Hampshire primary. I
Probably
voted for Paul
Dukakis.
Tsongas.
Oh, I thought you'd be like Dukakis or something.
Well, I was for Dukakis, but that was 88.
Paul Tsongas was hot around here, yeah.
But, yeah.
Do you know what digital
My friend
assault is?
was, my good friend who's been on the show was Linda Tripp's attorney.
Do you know what digital assault is?
Yes, I do, and we're not going to talk about
I
that.
just didn't know if you thought it was computers. So
Do I look that up?
I just found out. I
There's
found it
also
interesting.
rape by instrumentality, but we're not going to
Oh.
trivialize such a hideous crime by talking stuff like that.
I thought it was a computer thing.
But remember at one of the 2016 debates with Hillary Clinton, he had 2 people, I think one of them was Kate Broderick or something, 2 women that had accused Bill Clinton of rape at one of the debates, and the FBI at the time had dismissed Ms. Broderick as untruthful.
Right. Cover-ups happen all the time at every level. So even when you know you're wrong, you stick with the story, because if you admit it once, then your story falls apart. So
Well, a story, there's a reason why there was always a statute of limitations on all crimes except murder. Memory is incredibly fallible.
even
And
this,
then when you're talking about sexual relations between people, unless it's like an armed, a violent rape between two, somebody that doesn't know each other,
The problem
You know,
is,
that is the highest level of rape. But, you know, there's rapes that happen between people that know each other. Until the late 70s, marital rape was not a crime in every state in the country.
really,
Oh, yeah, men had the right to,
but it is now, right?
what we, rape his wife.
It is now illegal, right?
It is, I would think, in every state in the United States because of the feminist movement, the women's movement. But at the time,
I don't
that
think.
was not considered a crime.
I don't think just because a girl has a headache, you should be able to do that.
Well, Gonzo, should we move on to another issue?
Well, I'm married, so I'm just
Should we
saying.
move on to another issue? I
Yeah,
know
for
that
sure.
you're being wry, but it's such an issue.
Satires are very risque.
Yes, well, no, satire has a way of being misconstrued,
Sure is.
or as a
By
friend
the-
of ours would say, misconstrued.
By the layman.
Yes, it's not a thing like to go lightly on.
I know. I just try to be at your intel.
But
But no, we got there from the original topic. Crissy Kantor, congratulations. Go in there, go get them. And I assume you'll still be at, the business owner, correct? And hard to juggle two things like that, I would assume.
no, well, a lot of aldermen do.
I hope.
It is difficult, though. That's why Tim Baines had to step down, because you can't run restaurants, and, well, he had a couple,
Well, it's like you,
and be an alderman at the same time, because the business is so consuming.
Ian, you're also risking,
Alienating
losing half of your crowd. If you're outspoken about a subject, people might be like, I'm not going to his restaurant, So it is kind of risky in that sense. You have to pick whether you're going to do one. But we'll see how the 6 months goes. She'll be put right into it.
people. Right. And,
Then she'll try to retain the belt.
there's a saying that all politics is local. So the Democrats sent out a card about Crissy Kantor saying that, she supported, I don't know exactly what, but, some people consider what happened in January 6th at the Capitol an insurrection. I don't know if legally the United States considers it an insurrection. They have put people in trial for sedition and conspiracy. Not everybody that was there intended, to overthrow the government, and not everybody there that,
Right.
did certain things. I mean, a riot happened, and there were people there with the intent of,
Oh, of course. And some people went there just to have a good time, but then got sucked into it.
right. A riot, we were taught in the Army, a riot has its own psychology. A mob has its own psychology. If there had been a massive show of force, the police, it wouldn't have happened. It was very unlikely for it to happen. If there had been BLM there, there'd been a massive show of force,
Even when the at Fenway Park, when the World Series, the Red Sox won the World Series, they came out.
mob
They came out
mentality.
hard. It's like SWAT team with the right away, clear it
They
out.
have
This
to.
ain't happening.
In 675, when they lost Game 7 of the World Series against the Reds, there was a riot in Kenmore Square. Cars were burned. They assaulted the subways in Boston. They had like those trolley cars that go. They're on the top of the ground, and then they go underground. That's what goes through Kenmore Square. They were assaulting them because they looked like old GM school buses at the time.
Well, in 01,
This
it was
riot.
different. They kind of let them go because it was the first time. But 04, they shut it down.
Because
right
04
then.
was the first time.
That's
they
what I
won.
meant.
Yeah.
Sorry, 01 was the Yankees.
04,
one.
7, 13, and 18.
Right. So 04, they let them kind of party a little bit.
But this has been
But
awful.
in 7, they kind of shut that down. And now, if they were to win again, it wouldn't happen.
Right, because it's happened all over the United States, where Detroit, all
Boston
over
doesn't
different.
need that any more of that crap.
Geez, was there a riot when
even
the,
if they're not as racist as people perceive them to be, they don't need any incident. So shutting it down is fine with me.
Now, were there any riots when the Bruins blew it in the first round of the playoffs?
I doubt it. It wasn't as consequential. I would say there was probably riot. No, there weren't.
Was it last game in Boston?
It was.
7?
It was Game 7 in Boston, but
But
it was
look where
round
it is.
1. It was it wasn't as bad as when, we lost that game. Tuca let 2 goals in.
Yeah.
But
But see, that's 18,000 people. in Fenway Park can get 38,000 people.
There were 1 million people there in '07 that they turned away. A
Right.
million people.
You have all the bars and everything
yeah.
in that area. When you're the thing about the Boston Red Sox are an area that's full of bars, and bars and more bars,
Yeah.
places to drink
Pizzeria
and
Uno.
congregate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where TD, it used to be a different when I was a kid. That area when it was the Boston Garden, but they've redone the whole area.
But if you're in Washington, first of all,
Washington D.C.
yeah, during this insurrection, as they say.
Okay, we're back to January 6th,
Why
2021. And see, Crissy called.
they were there to get? What was the attraction to be there in the first place if it's not to really?
To protest.
Okay, to protest. No one's there to see Pence, hand over whatever, like Trump wanted him to not do.
Right.
No one went to see that ceremony. They went there to see if he would actually listen to the big guy.
It's you have a constitutional right to assembly.
Well,
You don't have a constitutional right to overthrow the government, and you don't have a constitutional right to riot. But you do have a right to protest. The BLM people have a right to protest. Antifa has a right to protest. They don't have a right to become violent.
it just seems like they could have picked a better place to go, considering, the president was like kind of making undertones about it.
Well, yeah, there was all,
There were people there to do that, and other people
Well, part
probably
of the,
could have sat that one out, Joe.
part of the
is what I'm
problem
saying.
was creating a climate of election denial, that all these elections are rigged. Now, Crissy Kantor was interviewed a person at a event that Steve Bannon was, an election denial an election denial event that Steve Bannon was at. He's the prince of anarchy when it comes to election denial. She's holding a poster rigged, I believe, and she's interviewing her as bright, chill girl Crissy Kantor. And I have it on my computer. I can actually bring it up, and I can play it.
Well, regardless of someone's political
But she
beliefs,
said, Crissy says, like, the people that were at January 6th were patriots. But you talk, and I'm going to bring it up, and I can turn this around, and we can listen to it. And people can decide for themselves.
right? Well, it sounds like they did it in large numbers. But regardless of a political belief, if you sit down and you get to know someone, I think that makes a lot of difference when voting too. So I think the meet and greets with her charming personality.
She's a very well-liked person
and she's
here
not
in
even
New Hampshire.
Just because I'm a Democrat and she's a perceived Republican doesn't mean that I don't consider her a friend.
A lot of people
I spent
are
enough
friends
time
with
to
her.
say I'd call her a friend, but at the same time, what do? Do you vote with your heart or do you vote with your brain?
Well, all politics is local. She, as an alderman, their main concern is taking care of their constituents. Like Keith Hirschman and I disagreed about a lot of issues, but nobody could deny he was a first-rate alderman when it came to handling his constituents. And that's really their main job, in my opinion.
But if you look at the numbers on most votes, it's consistent with people who would lean towards the right, stick together pretty much. There's about...
Well, that's the people that backed her.
Right.
Yeah.
So also, you have to assume she'll vote in that direction which Joe Kelly LaVasseur votes.
She will be, like Rich Girard.
And I'm sure he's going to take her right under his arm and congratulations. Now here's what happens now, Even though you're not really supposed to even have conversations with each other, that's weird too.
Well, that's a whole different
Isn't that
issue.
weird? I think that's
but,
weird.
How can you not?
Yeah, it is weird. But I think that was a big win for the Republicans to get another swing. I don't know what Sebastian was.
He was a right-wing Republican.
Okay, so
but
it
he
stayed
was
the
a
same.
he was pragmatic. He wasn't just ideologically driven. But she'll be joining Joe Kelly LaVasseur and Ed Sapienza from Ward 8. Who else is on the board that's... I don't think there is anybody anymore.
Right, so that means nothing. Because you can only do so much. Like, people always blame Mayor Craig for the problems in the city, but I bet you 80% of the people don't realize that she doesn't get to say anything. It's all the aldermen that really make all the rules.
Do you really believe that?
I don't know, isn't that the way it's set up? Where
There was a new charter
The
that
mayor would have
gave
a
the mayor
tiebreaker?
much more power.
Oh, okay.
Brendan, if I bring this up on the computer, can the folks see it? Because I found it online.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to hit it.
You probably have to skip ad.
Hopefully it'll come up. Here we go.
Exciting.
Hi everyone, we are live in New Mexico, Ruidoso. Chill girl Crissy here, your chill and heel host, and I came across these amazing ladies, patriots, and where are we? We are in Ruidoso, New Mexico. We're at the change course for New Mexico, and we have been chatting all day. We've been really busy. It's been an amazing event. Bannon, Mike Stell, all the amazing patriots that put it together, the Clements, and they shared with me that they were at January 6th, and I'm like, oh my gosh, could you share with the people around the state of New Hampshire where I'm from, where I go back?
Sounds like every other.
I'm going to replay it one more time.
Live in New Mexico, Ruidoso. Chill girl Crissy here, your chill and heel host, and I came across these amazing ladies, patriots, and where are we? We are in Ruidoso, New Mexico, in Lincoln County, and we're at the change course for New Mexico, and we have been chatting all day. We've been really busy. It's been an amazing event. Bannon, Mike Stell, all the amazing patriots that put it together, the Clements, and they shared with me that they were at January 6th, and I'm like, oh my gosh, could you share with the people around the state of New Hampshire where I'm from, where I go back?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
she kind of said it in the beginning too. She's like, New Mexico. Well, you know what?
She is.
She's like every other reporter. She's kind of like leading
not
the
a-
witness.
She's not a reporter.
I know, but she
Did
looked
you
like
see
one
it?
in that.
Rigged. Did you see the T-shirt?
Right. She's
Rigged.
holding a microphone. It seems like she's leading the witness, Your Honor. But that's not a room I want to be in.
You have to
that rigged
understand
room.
that in New Mexico was one of the, and Arizona were the hotbeds of election denial. In New Mexico, Jay Block, as a county commissioner, refused twice in 2022 to certify the vote, both in the primary and then in November. And according to the Secretary of State of New Mexico, you don't have that authority under the state constitution. You have to certify. If there are problems with the vote, you try to rectify them.
Right.
And if the problems persist, you send them to the Secretary of State's office. Just like when Maxine was running, there was a recount. There was actually 2 recounts. So you can't just deny it. But they have an ideology that any ballot, Kantor is related to this extreme right-wing group, a pressure group, that any ballot that's not a paper ballot is invalid. A voting machine ballot is invalid. And they actually, in 2020, after the election, the general election, and this actually, let's go to Otero County in New Mexico. The county commissioners actually refused to certify the vote, even though Trump had won the county by 35 points. And
What do you mean? So he
no, this isn't Jay Block's county. This is New Mexico.
Right.
And one of those county commissioners in Otero County went to January 6th, and he was removed from the county commission by the Secretary of State for being an insurrectionist. And this is the climate in 2022 that she was involved with. You know, that this constant all elections are rigged. Now,
Well,
Jay Block gave $104.10 to a Republican candidate, first-time candidate, that went up against a long-term Democratic representative. He lost by 74-26, a landslide. This Republican candidate, who was a convicted felon, because the candidate he was up against went to court to have him thrown off the ballot, but the judge ruled that the law in New Mexico saying a convicted felon couldn't hold office was unconstitutional. So this first-time convicted felon candidate remained on the ballot. He won the primary because I think he was the only one. Jay Block in the September gave him $104.10. He lost by 74-26 and insisted it was a rigged election. He lost by, this is like what Zelensky won in Ukraine. You know what I mean? A landslide in the United States is 58-40 or something.
yeah, and he refused to sign off on it.
This guy, no, this has nothing to do. The only thing that Jay Block did with this person was give him a campaign contribution, likely knowing he's a convicted felon, and a MAGA king, as he called himself. Now, this guy subsequently hired 4 people to shoot up the houses of 4 Democrats, including the incoming Speaker of the House. This is the climate, they create of election denial. That somebody that loses overwhelmingly still is claiming that it's rigged in that.
It's easier that way. It's like, say it was rigged.
Yes, but
it's like getting down 3 touchdowns in a football game and then being like, well, now the ball's flat.
Yeah, but
like the Ravens did.
People don't hire, nobody in either one of the teams hired people to shoot Tom Brady or Belichick or shoot up their houses.
Right. So
this is a culture of election denial, of denial of reality. Steve Bannon doesn't believe in any of this. He's just a huckster, a hustler.
But is she denying this election, Crissy? Probably not, right?
Why would she deny an election?
Exactly.
She won?
It's like heads I win, tails you lose.
But they, I'm just saying, I don't think of her as a particularly political person at all. I've watched her on many shows. She didn't seem to have any command of the issues. She's just a nice person that has been put up to be alderman. And, that happens.
Well,
there's nothing to fault her for that.
There's a big stance on the mask for a little while, but that was in the heart of COVID when everybody was completely either crazy for one side or crazy the other side. That was a weird time. The masking in the heart of COVID.
I know people that were anti-maskers. I know people that were anti-vaxxers.
Right.
You never saw me attacking them. I wore a mask. I got vaccinated.
But I'll give her credit. During the time, she really dug her heels in. Because now I don't really care. Because now I wouldn't wear a mask because we know what happened. But at the time, if you passed me in aisle 4 going the wrong way, I was like mad at you. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? I would tattle. But now, she almost comes out looking like she knew what she was talking about when it comes to that. Because everyone was going crazy. And if people who deny saying, oh, I always felt that way, are the same people that say they voted for Kennedy. Because everyone always says, I voted for Kennedy.
My father used to say he voted. It was Adlai Stevenson in the 50s.
Yeah,
Then he finally admitted he did vote for Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Because everybody I voted for Adlai Stevenson. Don't blame me.
Right. But I don't know what kind of impact. It sounds like the votes are going to be the same.
Well, she will be. She's a nice person. I'm sure she cares about the community. But when she was on the shows, I heard her just,
she's sweet. She always used to bring someone beneficial to the community. Yeah.
She was just parroting Victoria Sullivan's crap about how the city's a hellhole, how you can't go in and everything.
I don't know if she feels. You think Crissy Kantor feels like the city? She said that stuff.
Oh yeah, that was her. That was her stuff. That was her shtick. She used to go on, and the first time she was on the Victoria Sullivan show, she's only on for 14 minutes because she's not somebody like a Maxine that could spend an hour talking about the issues.
Now, when
She's new to it. You can't fault
Right.
her for being new. You can't fault her for wanting to step up and take it.
Right,
The
you have to
Republicans
try.
got behind her because she's a attractive person. She has a wonderful personality. She had a great number of friends in the city.
Mm-hmm.
That's a type of person you want to run for office.
went to Central,
You just, right.
that's a big thing.
Yeah,
I-
it's a big thing, anti-thing for me.
So my-
Joyce went to Memorial, so she gets kudos for that. I'm against Central High friends. When I was in school, was the real evil empire. They beat West High in everything.
Yeah, that's what. Don't worry, they don't now.
That's before
But
Trinity got built up.
they're having struggles now in sports. But
We should do a show about high school sports.
I should. When I
do it
saw her
regular.
signs, I was very curious because one of them said, "I will honor the tax cap." Can you explain what that means?
Well, the tax cap, it's also known as the revenue cap, is that the city cannot raise the, property tax. It's all property taxes.
so that's
Above a 3-year average of inflation that the city economist gives. But a supermajority on the Board of Aldermen can override the tax cap. Tax cap's been a big issue for a long time.
okay. That's what it is. Property specifically.
Yeah, property taxes. Everything in New Hampshire is property taxes.
Yeah.
Business taxes are all. There's also business taxes, but we've lost so many businesses in the city, and factories. We have retail, like when we lost the Sylvania plant. A plant like that pays a higher level of taxes than a retail store. And as Joe Kelly Levasseur said, and it's true, with all this proliferation of nonprofits taking over properties, they don't pay taxes. Some do because there's a deal that will be made. Well, you'll pay something for a certain amount of years.
Yeah. I mean, and I know they're pretty good at enforcing taxes in Manchester, at least.
Yeah, well, every city is that way. But if UNH takes over part of the mill yard, it becomes, rather than having a business in there that will pay taxes into the city, it's tax free.
So, like when Snoo started doing that, buying up all the stuff.
Right, they're tax free. They're a nonprofit.
Nonprofit. So they have to spend that money being a nonprofit, correct?
So when you have all this proliferation of nonprofits, you've got take a hit in the tax base if you believe that those business area, like there would be a business there instead.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that comes to an issue like homelessness. Homelessness grew under Ted Gatzis, and under Joyce Craig, I'm sure it's increased because it's happening all over the country. When you take like the Coit building and turn it into a shelter to have to deal with it, you've taken away a property that could be a warehouse or businesses in there.
Right.
But you also are bringing in, it's going to attract people to come here, more homeless people. At the time, that wasn't for homeless, it was for substance abusers, which was a big problem in the city. And you have to do something. You can't just not to do something.
You have to do something, but
So then you have
shooting a BB at a rhinoceros isn't going to do much either, though.
But then you have this cycle where if you build it, they will come. It's true. If the resources are here, people are going to come. Then you're attracting more people. Then there's more nonprofits being created to provide more services. And then you have a thing where like businesses close, businesses don't come into the city. Joyce Craig brought BAE into the city. Reportedly, they wouldn't come in when Gatzis was mayor. And in her first term, they came in. That's a major add to the tax base in this city. But if that was turned into like a homeless city, it wouldn't be. That's I'm being the hyperbolistic. That's
right. And I have to assume if all educated guests would assume she would be, not as compassionate to the needs of the homeless as the left. It seems like the right has a way of being.
Are we talking about Crissy Kantor?
Yeah.
I don't believe
No.
that.
Well, I'm saying
I think
right,
Victoria Sullivan's compassionate towards the homeless.
I think the right has a way of being less sympathetic to, well, tough love, I would say.
Well, yeah, because that works.
Programs. They don't want programs. You know, like,
Well, yeah, they do want programs, but they want a solution to the thing.
right. So
That would be its own show, to be honest. I'm not going to put down Victoria Sullivan or anybody. I think she has a lot of compassion. I bet Crissy Kantor does, too. I mean, Mormons are generally what we would consider right-wing, but they tackled homelessness because when you start covering Mormon politicians like Mitt Romney and John Huntsman, you find that even though they're conservative, they, because of their church, have a commitment to the community. So homelessness was tackled in a very thorough way in Utah. So you can't hit somebody being conservative by that.
I mean, some people will throw money at it and some people won't. Like some cities will throw money at the homeless problem.
Yeah,
And-
some cities spend as much as $75,000 per person.
right.
Big cities.
Which really boils people's buttons.
Well, you know, because of all the resources.
I don't mind
they
it
don't
if it
give
works.
somebody $75,000. It's just that that's what it costs when you all these different programs.
Right. Like a hotel voucher for a month. I assume those hotels are getting full price for those rooms,
I don't know.
which is a little annoying if you're homeless and you get in a hotel room in the winter versus summer, because if you go to the La Quinta, the pool's open. You know what I mean? That's what
I really don't know, and I wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Right. You're not a hotel hopper.
No, I've stayed at many hotels when I'm traveling, but the couple of times I was out someplace, you have a car or a tent or whatever, or you will have a couch surfing.
Well, it seems to be, as the weather gets going better, we will be seeing more homeless people in Manchester, in the general center town area.
Well, one of the reasons why Manchester has an increase in the homeless population since Ted Gatzis championed Safe Station, and remember Ted Gatzis championed it with, he said people from out of state are coming to take advantage of Safe Station, which remember is just a gateway to resources.
Well,
So, and he said that a woman in California put her son on a plane and sent him to New Hampshire. That turned out not to be true, but if it's here, they're going to come to it. And Nashua closed down its shelters, closed down South Station, and sends everybody up to Manchester. They have Nashua has a per capita income $10,000 more than Manchester. This is one of the poorest city. We only have several cities here because even a big place like Salem is considered a town.
yeah.
But the people down in Nashua aren't fools. They'd want the people out of their neighborhoods. They won't want their constituents calling up. Send them to Manchester.
Yeah, and-
So you start building
Well,
which-
that's because there's an absurd amount of, I guess I wouldn't call it a safe house absurd, but there are a lot of halfway houses in Manchester drawing these people to get help,
Yeah.
which is paid for by the government.
Also remember,
So people are opening these places up, and then they're making it a little bit, it's their rule. This is my way or the highway type of stuff, but they're still getting that rent. So,
yeah, that's another story.
but it's a contributing factor to the out-of-towners coming to Manchester.
Right. The other thing is
More
we have
beds
to
to
remember.
land on.
I was at an Alderman 9, Jim Burkish, a meeting he had with his constituents, and one of the things is we have the county jail. Nashua is part of Hillsborough County. There's like 480,000 people in this county. Where's the county jail? It's over on Valley Street in Manchester. When they're put in that jail, what happens when they're released? Nobody comes to pick them up. In fact, when the new sheriff of Hillsborough County said, I'll provide transportation to take them back from where they came, the ACLU said, no, that is a continuation of their incarceration. So they're here. So you bring them here because this is where the jail is, and then there are all these resources, and the resources are being created by people that care and want to take care of people.
And some of them,
But 75% of the people, what was it in the census 2 years ago of homeless, are from somewhere else. But that's because of Manchester being unique, biggest city. It's got the jail. And I'll just say this, in other states like New York, because of the uniqueness of New York City, where everybody gets dumped in New York City, the state gives them help and extra money because it has to do with that burden. That's not going to happen in the state of New Hampshire because everybody hates Manchester.
No, it seems to be
400 state reps.
seems to be right now. Concord, Sununu and all them. They don't really like Manchester that much. You think they could help out a little bit more?
But they won't.
They won't because we're the scapegoat.
Well, where were when Kelly Ayod, whoever's the Republican
It's amazing
governor,
people don't know this though. Like, why do you think? Where do you think these people are coming from? You think that people are having twins and putting one away?
Well, they come from all over New England.
No, but where do people who complain about it think these people are coming from? They're not just rising up from the earth. They're coming in from out of town.
Well, see, that's part of.
But-
that's a paradox. That's part of the conundrum. You give them. Well, it's not a paradox, but it is a conundrum. You give them help, more people are going to come. I found it ridiculous. They were talking about a shelter, like adult daycare shelter, where 9 to 5. We had one of those and it failed in 2017, and now suddenly they're going to resurrect the idea.
Don't you think some of the problem too?
Well, I just want to say,
Okay, sorry.
that's not going to bring. That's not going to bring more people here. Of course it will. I mean, we have resources. The more resources we have, the more we're going to bring people here.
And keep them here because
Nashua doesn't want to.
some of the
small
conditions of
resources.
getting out of Valley Street are that you go to a halfway house.
Right.
So if there's a
So
million halfway houses in Manchester,
And nobody's
they're
gonna
going to
be
stay
trans-
here.
Nobody's going to. Do you think if Joyce Craig sent these people back to their towns, if that's not even legal, what would Nashua be doing? What would Peterborough do? What would Bedford do? What would I'm thinking Hillsborough County, the towns. What would they do? What would they? They'd be up in Concord with all the other people that are from Manchester, the reps,
And it's gotten to the
sticking to
the-
Manchester, which is exactly what happens anyways.
it's at a point of
law.
no return, and also
It's a bad situation.
when it's a point of no return, that means that it needs to be fixed immediately. But if it's unfixable, can you just imagine 3 years from now,
Gonzo.
5 years from now, when people don't have apartments because they're all
Well, Gonzo, in 1999, homelessness was a big problem, being taken up by the Board of Aldermen when Wazorek was mayor, and the shelter head was Louis Craig, the former police chief, Joyce Craig's father-in-law. And at that time, Joe Lavasser, who I think was alderman from either 2 or 3, he wasn't an alderman at large then, and Keith both suggested using the National Armory because it would be an ideal place, but the state won't do it. A place like that, a state-city relationship.
I
But
mean-
it's a situation that's not only. It's
At
not
least-
the city can't completely control this.
So do you think it's
The
just?
economy's.
You think it's just gonna get worse?
Of course, it's going to get worse.
You think it's gonna get like bad,
Well, they say
like Portland, Oregon, worse?
look at inflation. Look at people can't find housing.
unbelievable.
Middle-class people are being wrecked.
We're still at a 1% vacancy rate in Manchester. So that means like, where are you gonna go if you can put $2,000 under the mattress to save up? Where are you gonna go?
I had a voucher, and there was no places to rent. Nobody. I had a Section 8 voucher. Couldn't find a place.
Because no one wants to go that route. They
Well,
all
there
want to
aren't
build
any
up.
places, and
Well,
there was
plenty
so
of luxury
few.
places.
There's so few.
It
yeah.
sucks. It sucks. And
We only got a couple more minutes.
yeah, in the flip side of that is these people are people too. Like we've had conversations.
we
with,
had winter Trebeks. We've had homeless advocates.
how do you get here? How do you get out of there? They're here. So it's like, it doesn't matter how you got here. It's like, what do we do with this individual? Like, what they're doing, some places, they're just spending a lot of money. That's the only way to fix this, is to throw a ton of dollars at it.
Doesn't work though.
And there's about
Vietnam. we tried the same thing in Vietnam. We tried
There's
the
about-
same thing in Afghanistan.
There's about 50 to 100 multimillionaires that live in the city that need to step up and do that.
I think that people.
Or it's over. Or your city that you love, it's going to crap if you don't reach in your pocket, because you'll still be a millionaire afterwards.
Well, that's not going to happen, but I will just say,
Nope.
we can talk about this next week if you want to come in. I think Pat Long's idea for a pod city is very good. It was rejected by the Board of Aldermen.
Because it's
worked in other cities.
Because they don't want to admit there's a problem. So a pod city would admit there's a problem, correct? Yeah. Anyway,
It's politics.
we'll be back next
Hey,
week.
take care, and thanks for dropping in.
Yeah.
See you next week.